y'all, I'm back and I have some creepy stories for you guys. I was actually thinking the other day, like, what stories could I tell? Who would have weird stories? And I was like, a mortician. I don't know why I've never thought of that before. Weems, every time I start filming, Weems is on crack. So I found an article that says, Tales from the Morgue, 25 horrifying and grisly true stories about handling dead bodies. I read the first few. They're not terrible, but these might get bad. I don't really know. I honestly don't know what to expect, so we're just gonna get started. I don't feel like sitting on my knees, so we're going down. Okay, number 1. Transported a 60-year-old woman to the morgue after a severe car accident. She had run into a large tree head-on 70 miles per hour. Face was smashed in completely. After they x-rayed the body, they found a tube of lipstick in her brain. Cause of death was putting on makeup while driving, i.e. lipstick. Well, that just instilled a new fear into me. Now I'm gonna be I don't put on makeup while I'm driving. I don't do anything while I'm driving because I am so paranoid. Like I do not touch my phone. Like I do nothing while I drive because I'm like focused. But for some reason now I'm scared. I'm gonna put on chapstick or something and die. Number 2 was an EMT that got access to a bunch of places and experiences because I am me. Hanging out in the morgue, picking the brain of the guy on the shift during graveyard at Martin Luther. Had a corpse sit up on one of the gurneys while mid-conversation. I go pale. He just looks at me and says, they do that sometimes. Number 3, on a pathology rotation at the county medical examiner's office in medical school. This included some site visits. We got a call to a house that had been reported to have a horrible smell coming from inside. Cops had found the owner who had died 3 weeks prior in the middle of summer. This person was a hoarder. House was full of old cans of cat food, newspapers going back decades, and VHS porn tapes. Okay, well, maybe these aren't going to be that bad. Oh, that wasn't the end. Did the autopsy that afternoon in a special containment room. Body was absolutely full of all manners of insect life. Maggots, beetles, flies, roaches, everything. The smell was horrendous. I still get the willies thinking about all those bugs pouring out, running around on the floor, flying around the room, etc. Oh my god, I actually can't imagine. Oh no. Okay, next one. I was a student at the time, but my first ever bloater was brought in, and once we popped him, insides were outside and everywhere. Would not recommend. On my first night shift, I thought staff were fucking with me because I kept hearing what sounded like breathing. Fresh body brought in and was releasing gas. I've never dealt with anyone dying in the hour being brought in, so it was scary hearing this body breathing. I've been there when family members pass and witnessed breathing and limbs moving, so I know it's normal, but as a student, the staff likes to fuck with you. Bizarre one was piercing a guy back together after he committed suicide by gunshot to the face. Family wanted an open casket. Had to try our best, then ask one family member in to see if they still wanted an open casket because we just didn't feel like it was right. Dad came in, sees that no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't make him look the same as before, and agrees the family shouldn't see him that way. The day we delivered him to the funeral parlor, family changes their mind and has an open casket anyways. Found out the rest of the family didn't know he shot himself in the face. We ended up getting a letter of complaint from the members of the family for the open casket. That's literally not your fault. I finished as a student a few days after, but would still love to be in the career though. Honestly, good for you. I don't think I can do it. Not a mortician. This comes from my mother back when she was a teenager. Guy she knows takes a job with the local funeral home. He works the graveyard shift and all was well for the first few months. Dude is often weirded out at work, claims that the building is haunted. Earlier in the evening, they get a call from the hospital saying they had a lady there ready for pickup. They pick her up, guy is freaking out, says he has a bad feeling. Later in the evening, mortician has to step out for a bit, leaving the guy there to work alone with the dead lady. He goes about his work, still a little freaked out. Suddenly he hears this low, soft moan. He swears it's just his mind playing tricks on him and goes about his business. He hears it again, a little louder than last time. It is late, he is alone. He's just hearing things, probably just the pipe settling. The plumbing is old after all. Short time passes and it's louder. At this point, he is sure he isn't just imagining things. He knows he heard the dead lady moan. His first thought was the mortician was fucking with him. He had been shaken up all evening and this asshole is pranking him. He marches over, very funny you dick, yanks back the sheet covering the dead lady, expecting to find the mortician somewhere around her. Dead lady grabs the guy's wrist. He lets out a scream and bolts for the door, forgets his car, runs all the way home. Turns out the old lady wasn't dead. The hospital got it wrong. Hooray, 1950s medicine. She had been in a coma or something, and they had been sure she had passed on earlier that morning. She woke up at the funeral home and scared the ever-loving hell out of the assistant. He quit the next day, said he would never set foot in there again. Same. Okay, number 6. Uncomfortable being trapped in the morgue alone during a hurricane. Our morgue was basically in a basement type situation, and the hospital was near a main waterway that flooded. I had to move all the bodies to the highest cabinets, pray the generators would keep everyone cold, and was standing on my desk for about 2 hours when someone finally came for me. Bizarre would be drowned guy who was dead on arrival, and once locked up in the cabinet, a tapping noise started coming from him. It was a crab that had made itself a home inside him, and when it got cold, he wanted out. Creepy was when we got some people who were doing bath salts and had eaten other people. They looked crazy even in death. These are like insane. I don't know what I was expecting, but it just like wasn't this. I just don't know why. Whenever I read these stories, I'm always like, what? Anyways, lady I worked with used to pick up the bodies for the coroner. One time they had to collect a woman that was lying in a very hot attic apartment for a couple months. All her liquids ran out onto the floor and dried, and when they tried to pick her up, she started coming apart like an overly tender turkey. Her coworker sent her to the van to get more bags, and when she got back, he had finished bagging the lady. Classy. Changed how I think about turkey. Okay, number 8. We picked up a suicide on a major holiday. Thanksgiving or Christmas, I can't remember. Took her back to the funeral home, undressed her, and had to wait for the medical examiner. Family decides to cremate. We had dressed her for a viewing. Everything was normal. Later that day, she was ready to be cremated. I put her in, started the machine, and went back inside. I had to embalm someone else. About an hour in, I heard like 5 loud pops. First thought that was a pacemaker, brain simulator, or something I had missed. I let it finish, swept it into the tray, and a fucking small handgun came out. Now I had seen all of her. Seriously, where did she have that at? The only spot is inside her vagina. The question is why? It's been 10 plus years and I'm still like, what the fuck? Wait, I'm like, what the fuck? I work in forensics, specifically as an entomologist. I'm probably not saying that right. I extract insects from decomposing bodies to estimate the time of death or supplement existing evidence. It's as grotesque an occupation as you can imagine. The most odious cadaver was the partial skeletal remains of an 8-month pregnant mother who had gave life to a plethora of maggots, botflies, and moth larvae. They were consuming her like some monstrous funeral shroud. The tiny bones of the baby were disintegrating under the unrelenting feasting of hand beetles, as its flesh was too dry for maggots to find purchase. They preferred the flesh of the mother's face and breasts. I don't even want to keep reading this one. Observing the corpse, her exposed womb appeared to be giving birth. Many adult beetles were scuttling over her pubic bone and into the cradle of her pelvis. Her limbs were not splayed in distress, but unfortunately her expression was indiscernible due to the divots of botflies imbued in the flesh of her cheeks. Like, I literally don't want to keep reading this. Then I began my extraction. It was a drug-induced suicide which encapsulated the tranquility of her and her child's death. I literally don't want to keep reading. That was the end of that one, but I don't want to keep reading more stories because if that's in here, I can't even imagine what else there is. That's disgusting to think about, and it's really sad. I'd never been in a room with death until my infant daughter passed away last weekend. Congenital brain issue, expected death at home. She died quite suddenly, and I've always heard that bodies can move and breathe after death. I was holding her, she had stopped breathing, and she had no heartbeat. We had a stethoscope handy because she was on a feeding tube and we had to check placement. Suddenly, she started gasping. She started doing agonal breathing, a completely last-stage brainstem reflex to revive herself. I thought it was just gas at first, and then she kept doing it. After about 5 minutes of being dead and blue and without breathing or heartbeat, she brought herself back completely. Pinked right up, normal heart rate. It was the most incredible and shocking and awful thing I've ever seen in my life. I wish someone had warned me that this was possible. When the hospice nurse got there, she said that dying infants often practice death and die several times. Our daughter incurred some brain damage from this, not that it was an issue in our case. She ended up dying and reviving herself with agonal breathing one more time before she finally passed. The process took 8 hours. Now that I have seen someone die and come back, I fully understand why people create zombie mythology and otherwise invented paranormal explanations for these things. I saw this with my own eyes and I still don't believe it. That I would be. No. Okay, number 11. Heard on the news a friend from my youth had been killed. I was terribly sad for him. He could never escape his demons and it led down some terrible paths. Came into work a few nights later and there he was, face completely bashed in by a rock. This wasn't the first time someone I knew ended up in the morgue, but certainly the saddest. Okay. A writing professor of mine used to work in small-town journalism and decided to interview some folks from the local retirement home to get a close-up view of his town's history. One of his interviews was an ancient, retired mortician who told him a rather interesting story. Shortly before 1920, 2 teens were going to a school dance in a blizzard. The carriage they had taken got stranded and the boy went for help. The girl unfortunately froze to death in the carriage in an upright seated position. Apparently the mortician had to sit her in a rocking chair in front of the fire to thaw her out before he could go about his usual business. That is so sad. I work with the dead, procure eyes and corneas for transplants. While I was working on one guy at the medical examiner's office, they brought in another guy whose cats had eaten his face clean. Just his face, nothing else. It was a sort of decaying, but still somewhat normal-looking dude with a bright Halloween-looking skull picked clean. Lots of murder victims, gunshots, car accidents, even one train accident. A guy who hanged himself in front of his kids with a dog leash, which was still in the bag with his body. High-caliber self-inflicted gunshot wound to the face with teeth and jaw and bits everywhere and a bunch of gauze stuffed into the remaining hole. Let's not forget the guy in the decomp room who was just a pile of bones, hair, and leathery tissue paired with a bucket of goo. Crazy stuff, but never a dull day. Shut up! Okay, number 14. I don't know if we'll get through all 25, we're just gonna see what happens, but we're on 14. Not me, but my best friend works in the death business. She tells me all sorts of lovely things about her job and the recovery she has done, but my favorite involves a gurney and some stairs. Oh god. To set the scene, a family called in that their mother had passed in her apartment. 3rd story, narrow halls, and no elevators. Anyway, she goes to pick up the body to take back to the funeral home with an assistant. So they get up there and lift this woman who is close to 300 pounds on the gurney and begin their journey down to the van. Mind you, the whole family was there and pretty much in hysterics and crowd around as they made their way to the stairs. With family watching, they make it about halfway down the first flight of stairs when the body starts to slide. There's no way to reposition, so my friend who is at the foot of the gurney is now about ass level to the freshly deceased. So, trying to make the best of the situation, they continue their way down and try not to shift the body anymore. The thing about dead bodies is that gas starts to exit pretty quickly, and I'm sure you know where my story is going. The body started letting out farts straight into my friend's face. Like farts with every step down they take, and this poor girl has to keep a straight face while getting crop dusted by a dead lady with her whole family watching. No! Wait, that's the worst one, I think. That has to be one of the worst ones we've read so far. Just being in that situation. My dad is a mortician. We actually lived above the funeral, and my life had been just like my girl. He has been a mortician for over 40 years and has tons of stories. The worst by far is the human soup guy. Apparently, this elderly gentleman passed away while having a bath, with the water still running. He was living alone in the house with very little family. I don't remember how long he was in the bath before someone found him. My dad goes to pick up the body and it's human soup. The hot water constantly running and the amount of time caused his body to turn to mush. He said the smell was the worst he had ever smelled. He got back to the office later that day and his boss told him to throw away his suit and he would buy him another. Okay, let's read a couple more and then we'll be done. My brother told me a story of when one of his friends was a mortician's assistant. One time he had to work on a guy who had shot himself in the head with a shotgun. He said the guy kind of looked like Sid from Ice Age. That wasn't the worst, however. The worst part is how he felt about the whole situation. He apparently felt disconnected, not registering that the body was once a living man and not just something to clean up. My brother said he quit that night. No, that's like exactly how I would feel. Like, if you're in that line of work, you see so many dead people that I feel like it just stops, like, registering at some point that these were real living people. That's why I feel like it would be so hard. Honestly, the rest of these are really long and have words in them that I feel like none of us will understand, so we won't even really know what's going on, so I'm done. Those were interesting, to say the least. I don't know how to feel about any of that. My brain was like, morticians probably have cool stories, or not even cool, but like interesting or scary or whatever, creepy stories. And I was right, but I don't know how to feel. But that's all I have for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. I always have my subreddit open if you guys want to share stories, whether it's like creepy like this, if you're a mortician, you want to share a story, like paranormal stories, stalker stories, glitch in the matrix, pretty much anything. So I will have my subreddit link down below in case you're interested, or if you want to read the community stories. But I'm gonna go. I love you guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye. Guess what? I'm going to Portland this weekend. So you're seeing this on Friday. I'm already in Portland when you're seeing this. I'm trying to get 2 videos up this week. I leave Thursday like night kind of, so I definitely have time to do 2 videos this week, but I'm lazy. And I'm always like, I gotta dedicate a whole day to packing, so I'm down one day. Like, that's not even true. I have no concept of time at all. But I'm going to Portland. I'm super excited. I've never been before. And I feel like most of my trips recently have been to like LA or Dallas always. And I just am excited to go somewhere new and like have a little getaway. I'm really excited though because Friday, when you're seeing this, there's a car driving by, which is so rude. I'm talking. We're driving the coast in Portland. So, I'm driving, which I'm kind of nervous about, but I think it'll be worth it. It'll be so pretty. We're driving the coast, going to this one specific beach that my friend saw on TikTok or something. She gets like all of her travel planning, whatever, from TikTok. So we're gonna go to a bunch of like cute bars, restaurants, whatever we can find. And yeah, maybe like an art museum or something. I don't really know. I have no idea what to expect. She's the planner. I just kind of tag along. But yeah, I'm excited for that. I don't really think I have anything else to ramble about, so I'm gonna go. I love you guys so much. See you later. See ya.